Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another track guide. Today we're at the people's favourite, we're in Belgium, we're at Spa-Francorchamps with the famous Raidillon and Eau Rouge corner. It's a pet hate of mine. Different conditions make such an effect on this game, so from now on we're going to be setting things in the cloudy preset. We're going to be using 50 litres of fuel for a lot of setups, a lot of track guides, just as a constant baseline for things that are happening, so bear that in mind. A little bit of fuel on board. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, hit the button. We also have a Discord to join as well. I'll put the link in the description below. Today, such a difficult track, a lot of people struggle with it, a lot of people struggle to get time out of it, so hopefully we'll give you some hints and tips. Let's dive in. So coming out of the final chicane then, really key that you get a nice smooth exit using a lot of the road, going over this very short start finish, well finish straight really, because you don't tend to start here on the track. As you come to this first corner, and a corner I get asked so often, where do you brake for the first corner of Spa? Genuinely, I'm not just saying that because on track guide, but genuinely I get asked so often. And my answer is this tiny little bit of sort of grass on the left-hand side there, or lack thereof of grass, because it's really difficult to see. I've left it up there for a long time. Go back and have a look if you can, but it is absolutely perfect in almost any car, GT3 or GT4, to brake there and make the first corner. Try it. Braking nice and hard, trail braking, obviously how long we keep the brake into the corner, and we're immediately on throttle. As soon as we come off the brake through La Source, we're immediately onto half throttle. We're trying to get the back end of the car rotated round, and as soon as we feel the back bite and grip and not oversteering, that we can feel it at the minute, we are then full power. You see how quickly I'll get back up to full power here? Open the steering out nicely, because this run through Eau Rouge, up past Raidillon and on the Kemmel Straight is so important. It will be the difference between 2, 3, half a second, right? So let's just have a look at that again. So looking for that point on the left hand side, braking nice and heavy, trailing off as you start to turn more and more into the corner, immediately back on the power, half throttle, and as soon as you open the steering out, you're back full power all the way out to the left curb on the left hand side. Don't go over the sausage curb, as you'll bottom out and you'll scrape the floor and you'll lose a lot of speed through into Eau Rouge, which is actually the first part of this complex, the famous sort of Eau Rouge complex. You can see how far left I am positioned here. My right hand tyre is basically on the white line here to get as much entry as I can through Raidillon, and you can cut the top of it. It's fairly safe in the Lexus through here, so not any crazy sort of doings, but you can cut it quite a lot, and in some cars it can be quite a nightmare. Let's have a look at that again from above, and I'll point out this braking point on the first corner for you again, because it's quite difficult to spot. So we've got these like 3 dots on the left hand side here, and they come across as just 2 or sort of 1.5. But you can also use this flag on the right hand side, okay? If that's where your eyes take you and you like looking towards the inside of the corner a bit more, then use the flag. That's pretty much the braking point as well. Again, trailing off, make sure you're apexing slightly late and maximising your exit all the way out to the curb. You can actually run almost onto the sausage curb but not over it to maximise your speed. It's all about opening the steering up and getting on full power as quickly as you can without losing that grip. Try and straight line Eau Rouge and Raidillon as much as you can. You can go over the top of it, you run a little bit wider there. You will get track limits if you cut it though, and away up we go through onto the Kemmel Straight, which is one of the fastest bits of the track, over and above 165 miles an hour. Now I've paused it here, and the general rule of thumb on Spa, right, and this is a tip that you can take with you, is to brake at the beginning of the curb. We're coming up into Lacon here, and we're going to brake earlier than this, because what we want to do, we've got a little bit of fuel on board, remember, and we want to cut this right hand section of Lacon slightly, which will set us up really nicely to go left and then flick right again through the next little complex. So we're braking slightly earlier than you expect to. We're over this curb on the right hand side. We're already on the power, so we're getting the car to rotate round. A lot of Spa setups of high preload diff and low wing to get that rotation through the high speed sections. We're going to use that to advantage here. Flick left, and the idea, I've paused it here, absolutely perfect. We need to get the right hand side tyre on the white line. We need to cut it as much as possible. We need to hook ourselves round on the inside of this curb, to try and straight line this as much as possible, but by keeping our power tyre on the road, actually maximising the grip. If you go over that curb with the right hand tyre, you will push and understeer wide, and that will inflict your run into the next corner. So we need to keep it on the road but as tight as possible. That will allow us to come over to the left hand side of the track into Malmedy. You see how far over to the left hand side of the track. We're not in the middle of the road here, we're all the way over to the left hand side, and it's crucial, and watch the throttle inputs through here, that you keep a little bit of power on at all times just to keep the back end of the car rotating. And you know, you guys, you know I love pausing on the exit of corner. A lot of room to use here on the outside. No brake at all, a little bit of a straight as we come down into what is one of the most difficult corners on the track. Again, rule of thumb, use the curb on the left hand side as your braking reference. You can brake on it, you can brake slightly after it if you're on a hot lap. And again, we're going to be trailing into this corner, we're going to trail braking into this corner. It's so important. I'm going to say probably 100 times through this track guide that you need to trail brake, especially into Rivage. It is so crucial to keep the weight on the front of the car. You can see we're fully turned in now, we're on full lock, we're still just waiting for the car to come round, and then we power out, flick over to the right hand side of the track already. And I'm going to pause it here because this corner is strange. You need less speed to turn in than you do to take round the rest of the corner, right? So just a little dab of brakes, and you can see how I'm immediately back on the throttle, even if it's just a little jab, just to keep the speed constant or a little bit above where we were where we started to brake, because that'll gain you a tenth or two through this corner, the corner with no name it's known as, and that will, it's a hidden sort of trick around this corner, right? So you need to slow down more than the speed you need to take round the corner. You can cut it quite a lot immediately onto full power because there's a lot of room on the exit as we go down into Pouhon. Let's have another look at that from on board, because there's a lot to think about around this section, right? So we're braking before the curb, cutting these two corners as much as possible, keeping our right hand side tyre on the road here to maximise the turn, to keep left, keeping some throttle on through the right hander. Remember, we can run out wide, open that steering up into Rivage. We're braking at the start of the curb, holding onto that brake nice and long, using the power to turn the car after that, and as straight as possible, quick over to the right hand side, a little bit of throttle, just a quick blip to keep the momentum after we've dipped the nose in to get the turn in through the left hander, and we're away down this little mini straight. Again, looking for a couple of those points. This is actually, look how early I'm braking here compared with that curb. A lot of people brake on the curb, and what it does, it just ruins them for the entire section. We're, what, 3 or 4 car lengths earlier than the curb there. Cutting this as much as possible, and here's a nice view of how perfect you need to be on this left-hander to maximise the turn in, right? So the right-hand tyre, it even looks like we're still on the curb, but I promise you we're not. We're just on the road, and that's the sort of limit you need to be on through there. Keeping that momentum through the right-hander, and away we go down into Rivage, which is super difficult. Holding onto that brake nicely. You can see we're down to 60 miles an hour. We're sort of a third of the way through the corner, and we're still holding onto that brake, and for a little longer. And then once you're past that sort of early phase, you're just cruising, and then you're using the power to turn the car, which is really key. There's that little flick of the throttle through there again for you, and away onto this little straight down into Pouhon. As we go back on board with the car, I just want to pause it here because we're already halfway through the lap in terms of time, and we've basically done a hairpin, a straight, and a couple of corners. Spa is so unique. Anyway, let's carry on. I want to pause it here just before we get to Pouhon, because look at this Pirelli sign on the right hand. A lot of people talk to me about, oh, but when you can't see a braking point, what do? Well, you look for a point that's before where you need to brake, and you either count in your head. I know someone who used to pick a point and go 1 elephant, 2 elephant, or however works for you, okay? So use it as a reference, and then use it to balance where you're going to brake, which is here for me. I've paused it so you get a little bit of a view of what's going on. You can see the shed on the right hand side, the little sort of air generator just in front of us, but just to get a feel of where on the track it is that we need to brake from here. And it's not a full brake, it's just a little bit, and then trailing off nicely to get the weight on the nose and immediately back on the power. It's crucial that you stay on the inside there as much as you can to keep that momentum as tight as possible. Do not go out wide too much. Again, this right hander, this little complex, we're blessed with some lovely curves. Brake at the beginning of this curve on the left hand side, and it's a strange one, this, because we're going to dive into this corner a lot more than you may think, and we're going to use our trail braking that we've been talking about to keep the weight on the nose and the car turning in as much as possible. So you'll see we're well through the corner. A lot of people are a lot wider at this stage, but we're still trail braking. We're still holding on to that 5% throttle just to keep the weight on the nose, to keep the car turning. And we're sticking as close to this curb as we can without going on the curb, because it will upset the rhythm of the car. Flick over to the left-hand side of the track, and I'm just going to pause it here, and I want to point out there's still a black mark for you on the curb on the inside. We can go well over this curb. As soon as you're on that black mark, you need to be thinking about getting on full throttle. That's my big tip round here, because there's a lot of room on the exit, more than I used there to use. Again, beginning of the curb to brake, we're using that trail braking. Again, I paused it here with 5%, just keeping the weight on the nose as we go through this section. Do not go on the curb on the inside here. If it's in the wet, you'll understeer or spin immediately. If it's in the dry, you'll just unsettle the car. We don't need to, because there's so much runoff to use on the outside there. I've paused it here because it feels like it's too early to turn in for this corner at this point. My brain is telling me that, Matt, this is too early. But it's not. It's on the touch on the early side, as you'll see we go over the curb at Stavelot. But because we're on the Astro on the outside here, because we've used all that runoff from the previous corner, the front tyres just don't bite straight away. So you have that tiny stage of understeer, and then they grip as they go over the curb. So remember that when you're going around here. Don't use this in the wet, though, because you will just slide off the track. You can use that curb. I just about stay on the track through there, but if you want a little bit of safe, you can lift just a little bit. So let's watch it again through Pouhon. Just a weight on the nose of the car. As soon as we feel the bike, we're back on full power, and we're keeping the car over to the left-hand side as much as we can. If you get caught out wide there, you're just in a never-ending corner of death, basically. Brake at the start of the curb again, as keeping it on the inside, diving into it as much as possible, looking for the black mark to go full power, using as much as the exit as we can. A flick over to the left hand side again, braking at the start of the curb, using that lovely trail braking into there. More of the exit than you think we can use. Keep it flat, or if you want just a slight lift through here, if you get a little bit nervous like I did there because I turned it just a tad too early, and we're away onto the let's call it the second back straight, right? Again, if you're not subscribed, do remember to hit that button. It's really important that the channel sort of continues to grow. It's great for me in terms of sort of motivation. So, at the beginning of the curb, just keep it so much tighter through here than you think you need to, because that allows you to flick over to the left hand side while carrying some good speed. Let's point out that black marking. It's a little bit easier to see from above here than when you're in the cockpit. As soon as you're there, you're thinking about getting up full throttle, or at least sort of 90-odd%. Flick up to the gear, so gear above where you need to be before this corner if it allows you, because then you can change down 2 gears, which allows you to have a little bit more turn in, which is crucial around there because it's slightly off camber. Not sure how it stayed clean through there, but it did, I promise you. And away we go into the final 3 corners of the track. So we're coming up to Blanchimont here, and a lot of people, let's pause it here on the entry, a lot of people forget that you can go all the way out to the right hand side here. As long as you've got one tyre on that white line, you can use as much as the road on corner entry and exit. And you can see I'm already turning here. It's a lot earlier turning point than you think through here. A lot of people leave it quite late, and they end up understeering or overturning through here, but actually you can turn in nice and early, and the car will just glide round it. And again, final corner, like the first one, absolute nightmare. There's no braking point, basically. You've got this white line that's just above the bonnet where I've paused it here, which is kind of your indicator to go, I should start braking now. And to be honest with you, it's not really that helpful. Just after this, you know that you're going to be braking. And I brake pretty early for this corner because I find that it just changes conditions every time I go through. I don't feel that consistent braking into this corner. I want to be a little bit safer. I want to trail off the brakes into corner entry to make it a little bit more safe for me. So I'm trailing off nicely. I'm holding that brake right into the bus stop, the first section of this bus stop chicane, because we're going to be keeping the weight on the nose of the car. It's going to flick the back end round so we can then get on the power just a little bit, and then just a quick dab of the brakes or let off for the left hand side, and you can see how much room you can use on the outside. You guys know I love pausing on the outside of corners. This is how much room you can use, if not a little bit more, to maximise your run onto the start finish straight. Let's have another look at that again then through Blanchimont. Remember, really wide on corner entry. Make sure you turn in earlier than you think. It almost feels like when we turn in we're going to hit the curb on the inside, but because we're going 160 miles an hour, the aero kicks in a little bit. Braking nice and early for the bus stop, holding that brake as much as you can, then straight on the power to balance the car. Make sure you open that steering up. It's almost an immediate sort of, oh, I'm through now, I need to be open and across the line. Really difficult, this final section, and one that frustrated me while I was filming this track guide, and one that will continue to frustrate me and others throughout the rest of time, I suspect, but really important to get it right. So braking nice and early after that white line, before the sort of markings on the track, and a lot of time they're not there. That little bit of power to stabilise the car, and then immediately that late apex, straighten the car up as much as possible. You can use way more than you think you can on the exit. Guys, I hope the main sort of stint on the track guide was helpful for you. If you're not subscribed or in the Discord channel, then do both of those. If you are subscribed and you haven't got the bell icon ticked for notifications, then why not go ahead and tick it. I think only about 10% of the people who are subscribed to me do have that bell icon ticked, so make sure you hit that. I'll talk through the lap one last time as we come up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon, absolutely flat, staying as much as you can to the left hand side of the track there to get as early as or as clean an entry into Raidillon on Eau Rouge as you can. Up through the Kemmel Straight, remembering to brake earlier than the curb, because if you brake on the curb, unless you're on a qualifying lap, you're going to run a little bit wide and it's going to upset your rhythm through this section. So cutting it as much as possible, keeping that right hand side tyre on the track, over to the left hand side to maximise the speed through this right hander, keeping that throttle on to stabilise and turn the car. Into Rivage, braking at the beginning of the curb, keeping that brake on nice and long, and then using the throttle to adjust where you are through this corner. Flick over to the right hand side, brake and then touch the throttle one more time just to keep the speed through there once you've got that turn in. Little bit of a breather coming into Pouhon. You've got the Pirelli sign on the right hand side. We're going to go one and then brake. Get the nose in. As soon as it bites, we're back on full power and trying to keep the car over to the left hand side to minimise the amount of distance we're taking through this really fast corner. Glide over to the left hand side, braking at the beginning of the curb, diving into this corner, keeping it as close but not on that curb as possible. You can go over this second curb, but as soon as you see the black mark, you're full power. At the beginning of the curb again, using that trail braking to keep the nose in. As soon as you feel it bite, then absolutely floor it through there, because you've got a lot of runoff. Don't turn in quite as early as I do, but it's earlier than you think you need to. And then again, a little bit of a breather, just a nice up through fourth, up through fifth, into sixth gear before Blanchimont. Completely flat through here, turn in earlier than you think you need to. The res will drop slightly as the compression of the car, and into the final chicane, braking nice and early before the dark marks, keeping that brake on nice and late, using the throttle to then stabilise through the exit and straighten up the exit as much as you can. And that is the track guide of Spa-Francorchamps. I'll leave you with the overhead, guys. Like I said, if you're not subbed, then do so. We're going to be doing 50 litres and cloudy preset from now on a lot of these track guides, and also I'm working on a 2020 setup bundle for the Lexus, which will be available very soon. I found a couple of sort of tricks with the tuning lately, and I'm looking to make that available for you guys on Set Space, like a lot of the other tunes I'm working on at the minute. But next year it's going to be massive for tuning, and we've got a lot of content coming, so stay tuned. Till next time, see you later, guys.